And welcome back into another NBA DFS video. We didn't even start the video yet, and we already are getting some kind of slate changing news. I wouldn't say it's breaking news, but we'll get into that in just a second. Chuck, any thoughts on this slate initially?
Sorry, I had the YouTube blasting in my ear. Yeah, we have a couple spots. I think Goga Bitadze is a big one. He had a really good game when he was min-priced. Last game, we all jammed him, and it looks like he's going to be the spot again. And then, thankfully, we got some news on the Mavericks players. Luka and Kyrie are both in. SGA was questionable all day, but he participated in shoot-around. He is listed available to play today. Mm-hmm. And we have a couple questionables on Washington, Daniel Gafford, Denny Avdia, Corey Kispert that might affect a little bit, but not too much. I mean, it's a huge slate. I prefer 5 to 8 games, not these massive slates, but there's a few spots that we can find some good edges, I think.
Yeah, honestly, my issue with like bigger slates is that there's always like some sort of low-key value play I would typically get on if it was like a 5 or 6 game slate that just like doesn't make sense to get on. And I don't know, it just you just kind of end up being the chalk, you know.
Well, today I am like we only have him for 13% in the model on DraftKings. Joe Ingles at 3,200 on the Magic with Markelle Fultz out. I mean, we don't have any other min price value, so I kind of get it, but I don't think that there's that many pay ups that we're desperate to get to. There's a lot of good stuff in the mid range, and so I actually think his ownership is going to be a little higher than that 13%, not too much higher, but it's not a spot that I really want to get to. Just lack of ceiling makes it a little difficult for me.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was trying to get at. It's just like weird slate in that regard. So we'll go ahead and get into the news for today. Let's just start out with the Thunder situation because we did get news that SGA is going to be active. And I just kind of want to retouch on all those plays because none of them really got a significant price bump with SGA off the court. And so what are we kind of looking at there? Because everyone's going to be low owned now.
Yeah, I mean, so Lou Dort shot insane last game. I think it was 6 for 6 from 3. He put up a pretty good score with SGA out. Jalen Williams, his price is probably appropriate, so that would be, I think, one of the spots I'm looking to. Josh Giddey has, he really disappointed on the last slate with SGA out, but the thing with Josh Giddey last season, we saw he was better with SGA on the court, and so I'm not saying it's a spot that we're necessarily getting to a lot today, but I am a little interested as a GPP play. And then Chet Holmgren, he's been pretty good. I don't know what it's going to look like with SGA and again today. I know we had a few games with them both together, but I don't know, kind of similar to Wembanyama. I still have questions, but I mean, Wembanyama's been great. Chet's been great. So, I mean, we can get to these guys as GPP plays in a small percentage of our exposures.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised by the low ownerships, all 2 to 3%. And it's a high scoring game, like 242. For a 3.5 line, that is crazy for them to be that low owned. And I want to take a peek here. Like Josh Giddey, even on FanDuel, where he's cheaper, is still pretty low owned. Isaiah Joe, no one's going to get to. That makes sense. Everyone else is probably correctly priced on FanDuel. But yeah, it's strange there for sure.
Yeah, it's not a bad spot. I mean, Atlanta and Sacramento are typically the teams that I think of that play at this high pace, high total. Sacramento a little bit different with the Aaron Fox out. But, I mean, at these low ownerships, I'm willing to take shots on these guys, especially SGA coming in at, 2% ownership? His price is correct, I think. I think I'm going to try to get there a little bit.
And then let's go ahead and talk about the Orlando situation because we got news that Wendell Carter is going to be out, and I believe we got news before lock that Markelle Fultz is going to be out, so that is going to create some value. Let's start with Goga there. So Goga's at 4.7 and 4.8, so pretty much the same price on DraftKings and FanDuel. He is pulling in a bunch of ownership, and it's because he's projected to get 27 minutes. That was our worry in the last game was him getting minutes. I think we had him projected to get 20. He ends up getting 26. What are your thoughts on Goga on this slate?
I mean, he was my highest predicted player when I was running lineups before the show. Or not highest predicted, highest exposed player. And it just, the thing is, there's so many good center plays today that I don't want to completely jam in Goga. Like last slate, I had 100% Goga. But today, his price is still good. And we haven't predicted 27 minutes. It's possible that he could have played a couple more if it wasn't for the blowout. The Orlando blew out the Lakers.
Yeah.
And so
how did that make you feel as a Lakers fan?
It's just our bench was the Lakers bench in the last game. They're getting Taurean Prince back today, but the bench was Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, and Max Christie. And for some reason, this dude, Darvin Ham, Mr. Pockets, if you've been paying attention to Lakers fans, that just because he always has his hands in his pockets, he doesn't really coach. He ran out those three with Austin Reeves and Cam Reddish at one point. And what do we do?
That's strange. That's why Christian Wood was decent, huh?
The thing is, Christian Wood didn't even grab rebounds. Like, grab a rebound, dude. Yeah. But Goga, his fantasy score was a little inflated by those blocks he had in the third quarter specifically. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think we should be expecting 37 fantasy points again. It's kind of insane. But he has historically been a really good fantasy point per minute guy. He's projected for 42 and 48% ownership. Yeah. I think he's a pretty solid guy to start our builds with. But like I said, I think there's a lot of good center plays. There's a lot of games today. So I do want to mention Mo Wagner as the backup to Goga. He's also a very good fantasy points per minute guy who's pulling 1% ownership at only a slightly higher price tag. Mm-hmm. And again, this is a very imperfect analogy, but is Goga going to outscore Mo Wagner 47 out of 48 times? No. Like, he's likely to outscore him because he's starting. We project him for 1 more minutes. But Mo Wagner is a pretty decent GPP pivot if you want to get there a few times.
I agree. I actually really like that call. You mentioned Goga had 5 blocks. That's not probably going to happen again, but he also barely got that double-double, which is, lucky, I guess, in a sense. And if Mo Wagner, let's say, maybe gets a little bit more run if the game's not a blowout as well, because he was someone that seemed like he was in the game rotation, the normal game rotation. So if he gets 23 minutes in that game, I really like that call. What do we got in per minutes? 22?
Yeah, it's not bad. I think he got into foul trouble last game, and usually it really shouldn't matter because he's a bench player. We're projecting him for 20 minutes anyway, but I think he had the potential to play a couple more minutes, especially without the blowout. So it's something. It's just someone to consider. Don't go crazy on him. Like, don't play him over Goga. Mix him in, I think.
Yeah. So like, if you're someone like me that does maybe 3 or so lineups, maybe 5 or so lineups, I am probably, if I'm playing Goga, I'd probably pivot off of him, and at least probably just one of those. 2 out of the 3, I would have Goga. One of them, I would have Mo Wagner, for example. And then we do have Markelle Fultz out. So I would say mine and Nick's really good call from the last slate was telling everyone, begging people not to play the Cole Anthony chalk and play Jalen Suggs as a good kind of replacement, as a good kind of leverage spot. Now, I don't know exactly what to do because Anthony Black played a decent amount of minutes, got 29 minutes in that game. Jalen Suggs is projected to get 29 minutes, and then Cole Anthony is now projected to get 28. And then we also have a sneaky potential play in Joe Ingles getting 25% or 25 projected minutes. Now, all of them are pulling in a decent amount of ownership. Where are you looking at there?
So I'm actually a little bit surprised to see the ownership flip with Jalen Suggs pulling more than Cole Anthony. I know his price is cheaper, and the model does prefer Jalen Suggs just very slightly. But, that's where I was kind of going with my build anyway. I'm going to have a little bit more Suggs than Cole Anthony. I still think Cole Anthony's a great play. He does have that ceiling. I was kind of surprised it's this low. I kind of expected the field to get there a little bit more. I think one of the other sites had Cole Anthony as a core play today, which I don't think he's a core play. He's coming off the bench on a gigantic slate. But I think he's a great JPP play. And, even Paolo and Franz are pulling this ownership. Like, this is going to be a targeted game. And Paolo's looked awesome without Markelle Fultz on the court. He's playing better. I don't know how much Markelle not being on the court has to do with that. But
yeah, right? It's weird.
He's putting up monster. He's shooting well. He's only taking 13, 15 shots. And then on the other side, Franz Wagner, I think he shot 12 for 28 last game. Like, 28 field goal attempts is something I'm very interested in. He only put up 26 real-life points. But just that he has the potential to put up 28 real-life shots, like, that's pretty huge. At the 7K price tag, I think is correct.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on him, too, especially if this game does stay close. In games that are blowouts, he's still getting minutes, but, in games that have stayed close, it's like 38, 35 minutes. And to me, that's pretty darn intriguing to get a guy at 7K that could potentially go for, let's be honest, like if he gets 5 more minutes, maybe 50, that's pretty crazy. DraftKings points, not actual points.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on. What other spots are we looking at injury-wise?
We did get news that Keldon Johnson's going to play. He was questionable for the Spurs, so I don't think that affects anything that we're doing over there. Chicago seems like they're in full health. Denver, I think Jokic was questionable, but I kind of expect him to play. And then Detroit, Jaden Ivey's out, and so I think a popular value play is going to end up being Marcus Sasser at 4,400 on DraftKings. It's a little bit too cheap for the role that he has right now. He's been shooting very well, so that's kind of inflating his fantasy score totals. But I still think that he's like, I'd rather pay a little more and get to Sasser than I would to get to Joe Ingles. But at the 12% ownership, I kind of would expect it to come a little bit higher, not too much higher, but I think that's still a spot we can get to.
So which of the two guards do you like better, Sasser or Hayes?
Well, so Hayes' price is it's still probably slightly too cheap. I have some Hayes in my lineups, but the problem is he's sharing the court a lot with Cade Cunningham, and Cade Cunningham's usage is sky high. And Marcus Sasser, I mean, like I said, he's been shooting really well when he's coming off the bench, but he does have a little bit higher usage. And so, I mean, we haven't projected for basically the same ownership. Marcus Sasser looks much better in the model, so I'm going to go with Marcus Sasser.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then Cade Cunningham at all? Any love for him tonight? You know, he has been shooting the basketball 20 times over the last 3 games. Probably at a correct price tag, but if he's someone that, you know, maybe shoots the basketball slightly better, 0 for 6 from 3, 2 for 7 from 3 the last 2 games. What's his ceiling? Is it like 45, 50, or is it just, you know, maybe Golden State, we don't exactly want to go in it too much?
I think Cade Cunningham's a guy that consistently has that 50-point ceiling. There was a game earlier this season, he took 30 shots, and it just, the potential to take that many shots. I mean, he was the number 1 pick. He's the man over there. He missed most of last season. So at 5% ownership on DraftKings, 8,500, I mean, you can see he's 18% on FanDuel at that 8K price, which is probably a little bit too cheap. It's very appealing. 8,500 on DraftKings, it's a little bit harder to get to, but he's a guy that I'm going to be mixing in tonight.
Yeah, that ownership seems too low there as well. We did have a couple of questions come in. I'll read this one off. It's more geared towards you. If you create a group with 5 to 7 core players, would you set a rule to use at least 4 from the core or something similar to that?
It's not something that I usually do, but it's definitely something you can. It depends on how many lineups you're making. Like if you're making 150 lineups, I don't know. My first thought is maybe it's a little bit too restricting. But if you're making a smaller set of maybe playing one of the 20 maxes on DraftKings or the pick and roll on FanDuel 25 max, then that could be fine. Yeah, just to make sure that you get your guys in those lineups.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because then you're probably just making those changes mostly by hand too. If you're only doing 20 and you can kind of manipulate it a little bit better. The next question that we had is if Gafford is out, is Joel Embiid the top play? I kind of want to preface this with the biggest worry in this game is it being a blowout. It's an 11-point spread. Typically, we don't like to really mention that too much DFS-wise, but I personally think that would cap Embiid's ceiling. Now, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, blowout is definitely a worry. I don't know if the line is updated yet. I'm seeing minus 11 for Philadelphia. But the thing is, if it's Philadelphia doing the blowout, it's probably because of Joel Embiid and maybe Tyrese Maxey. So I've talked about there's a lot of good center plays. You know, Anthony Davis, Jokic, Goga Bitadze is going to be very popular. But Joel Embiid, I think even with Daniel Gafford in, he was going to be in a pretty good spot today going against Washington's front court. So, yeah, I mean, he's a pay up I don't mind getting to. I'm going to be mixing him into my lineups, but I think I do prefer taking the savings on DraftKings and just playing Anthony Davis. Miami's a little bit tougher of a matchup than Anthony Davis has been having, but I don't think the price has caught up yet to what he's been doing on the court. I mean, he can't possibly keep this up, right? He's been scoring over 60 every single game.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, it's like the price probably hasn't adjusted though to that as well. So I get why we get like in a Joel Embiid question, like per slate he's in, like you just keep hammering him, right? And eventually it's not going to happen, right? Like eventually he's going to struggle. So it's strange. Just talking about some other injury situations, I kind of feel like we should just move into the positional plays, and we'll talk about them as they come because, well, we have a lot. So the Pelicans are going to be without CJ McCollum. That's going to lead to Brandon Ingram being a pretty good play, potentially Zion. The Kings are still without De'Aaron Fox, so we'll touch on that as it comes. And then, yeah, the Spurs are potentially going to be without Keldon Johnson, but they're already out without Devin Vassell. And then, yeah, there's some other ones as well. The Lakers are not going to have their bench at all, so we'll touch on that as well as it comes. So we'll go ahead and get into the guard plays here. And the reason we like to break this down is we just kind of switch up the process a little bit. We can kind of figure out where we need to be going with our lineup. So looking at right now, we got Luka as the best play at 12K, then Tyrese Halliburton, then Trae Young, then SGA, and then Brandon Ingram. Is Brandon Ingram really the kind of starting point tonight, or can we look at maybe Tyrese Maxey, Ant-Man, or DeJounte Murray, who are also probably a little bit too cheap considering how they're projected to play today?
So I am interested in Brandon Ingram, but I think I'm a little more interested in the other guys on the Pelicans, particularly Dyson Daniels. I'm pretty happy that his ownership is staying low. We have him projected for 29 minutes, which I'm pretty sure is much more than he's been playing. And 4,400 on draft on both sites actually at under 10% ownership for 29 minutes of Dyson Daniels seems like a pretty good spot to target. Brandon Ingram's still going to be a great play at 8K. There's a lot of good 8K players today. There's not that many 4,400 players today.
Is that just a thing where Brandon Ingram's probably going to give us 40 to 45, but that's about it for like fantasy points, and like maybe we chase someone else that has a better ceiling?
I mean, he definitely has that ceiling. So, I mean, I'm getting to Brandon Ingram. I'm playing him a bunch tonight, but I'd rather mix up the mid-range and focus in a little bit on what I think are the better values. And if Dyson Daniels starts, it's pretty huge. I don't know that he's going to start, but I mean, if he starts, I imagine his ownership is going to go up quite a bit.
So if Jordan Hawkins starts, is he someone you're looking at then, or just Dyson Daniels coming off the bench, getting the same amount of minutes, low ownership, more appealing?
So Jordan Hawkins, I'm pretty sure when he was mega chalk, it was a shorter slate, and now we have him projected for 0% ownership at basically the same price on DraftKings. It's a spot I'm going to go to. His usage is high enough, and it's different with Brandon Ingram on the court because he's probably not going to get those shots. But yeah, at 0%, 4,600, I'm willing to take shots on Jordan Hawkins tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he just shot the ball poorly that game, right? And yeah, that's the one outlier game when he was chalk. So yeah, I kind of agree with that. That's a weird ownership percent. Just taking a peek at the other values that we have. We mentioned Marcus Sasser. We'll touch on that here again. Jalen Suggs is popping up as a really good value, and then Anthony Black as well, popping in as really good values. The interesting thing to note about the top DraftKings values is that there's no one like below 4K that's standing out. So to me, it seems like the values that we would be going in on are going to be between like 5.2 and 4.3K on DraftKings. Is there anyone that stands out to you there that's maybe would be a starting point?
I mean, Marcus Sasser's DK value is kind of insane right now. It just stands out so far above the rest. We'll have to see. I mean, if he's coming off the bench, then I don't know. I think it's fine. Just like I said, he's not going to be on the court as much. Probably need a little bit more usage, but I think the top list all looks pretty good. Even Taylor Horton Tucker at 5,500. Tavius Caldwell, we haven't projected 1% ownership. He's 6 on guard value, and he's going to be a forgotten player tonight. I don't think he's a guy we're targeting, but the 4,500 on FanDuel looks pretty good too. Gets an extra point for a steal. So
I was looking at like the usage rates with Murray off the court. And so far this season, he's like the one that gets the biggest bump. And I'm like, that's definitely not going to be a long-term thing, but maybe in the short-term thing, maybe on this slate tonight, we can get to him. Did you have any thoughts on someone like Reggie Jackson, or is he just too high-priced?
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that they adjusted his price right away. But, I mean, he has shown like, he's a good NBA player. Like, he's better than what we think he's been. But I think that this is another situation where starter's out, and the usage rather than go to the backup guy. I'm thinking like when John Morant was out, Tyus Jones became just a super stud backup play. Yeah, I'd still rather get to more Aaron Gordon, even Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., and KCP. But yeah, I think Reggie Jackson's I think he's a little bit priced out for me.
Yeah, I agree with that take completely. What about though on FanDuel at 4.2? He's pulling in mega chalk there, 46%. But is that just a situation where, yeah, the pricing's incorrect, we need to eat the chalk?
Yeah, I mean, 3% versus 47%. It's kind of insane, but the price necessitates it. So the 4,200 on FanDuel, let me see if I got there in my... Yeah, he's one of my highest exposed players on FanDuel, so it's a little bit different there. Yeah, on FanDuel, he's probably a pretty great value play, if not one of the best.
Okay. And then one player that I want to highlight, because I I think he's going to be a player that I end up on a decent amount is Malachi Branham, especially on FanDuel where he's small forward eligible. Now he's a little bit higher price, but he's only 1% there. He is likely to start tonight with Devin Vassell off the court, and he is someone last year that I turned to a bunch. Now he was a headache at points, and he shot the basketball really well, 8 for 9, and that's probably my biggest concern. Do you like him? And I should mention, like, part of the appeal is the game going against the Pacers, or is that a situation where no, he shot the ball too well, and because of that, his price is a little bit too high?
He's a spot I don't mind getting to. The price is good. I'm sure I'm getting a bunch in my build. Let me see. Oh, no. I actually got 0% on DraftKings. I might need to adjust that. I think I want to get a few pieces of him on DraftKings anyway. FanDuel, I'm not sure if I'm going to get there at all, but DraftKings, the price is pretty good for a starter. I mean, he shot insane, right? But 25 minutes, 4,100. It's not a bad spot.
And I did just see we got confirmation that Keldon Johnson is active. So I was going to bring that up. If Keldon Johnson sits, I'd benefit him. No, that's not the case. So yeah. Let's see here. We got some questions coming in as well. Let's just see here. Do Kyle Kuzma or Poole interest you if Denny and Gafford are out? I'll let you take that one.
So Kuzma is a guy that I'm pretty much always interested in when he's under 8K. It's just, I know it's a tough matchup against Philadelphia. Vegas has this as a not a very close game, but if it's an 11-point game with 2 minutes left in the game, the starters are going to be on the court. And Kyle Kuzma, he's shown a ceiling. Maybe it's a little different. Jordan Poole's kind of mucking things up over there, but yeah, Kyle Kuzma is a guy I don't mind getting to. And then Jordan Poole, the 7,400 on DraftKings is probably a little bit too high. He can still get there, but it's just... there's a lot of other plays I'd rather get to on DraftKings, but 6,700 on FanDuel, I'm pretty interested in. I want to say preseason FanDuel had him averaging like 25 actual points this year, and I don't think he's gotten that one time. And so if he's got to be better than what he's shown. We only have him projected for 29 minutes, which is a little bit odd to me. But the 6,700 on FanDuel, I'm going to be taking some GPP shots there for sure.
Okay, yeah, that seems fair. What I find interesting, though, at that lower price tag is that he's not really popping up as one of the better guard values, which is kind of crazy.
Well, I'm wondering if it's this 29 minutes. And again, it's not like we're not sitting here at Occupy Fantasy as a staff going like, yeah, this guy's going to play this many minutes. This guy's going to play this many minutes. It's provided by a third party. And so sometimes there's going to be discrepancies in minutes. And I want to say the whole industry probably has Jordan Poole right around 29 to 30 minutes, but I think he has a potential for even 5 more minutes than that. And he's going to, I mean, if you give Jordan Poole an extra 5 minutes, the value scores are directly based, and the OF index is directly based off the minutes. And so you just increase that by 1/6. I mean, all of a sudden his DK value is 14, his FanDuel value is over 15, and his OF index looks pretty great. So I think he's a good GPP play at no ownership.
And then just real quickly, I do want to touch on the ownerships for the FanDuel value before we move on into the forwards here. Because the ownerships are very low for the top FanDuel plays. So Marcus Sasser only pulling in 3% there. That's crazy. Reggie Jackson's chalk, as he should be. KCP, only 3%. Malik Beasley, only 1%. Melton, 12. Klay Thompson, I actually want to get your take on that in a second here. But then Ingram, 18. Trae Young, 11. So like all the pretty good values that we're getting for guards on FanDuel are pretty low on, which is nice. But yes, Klay Thompson. I kind of mentioned on the last stream, people were asking about him. And I'm like, I think his price on DraftKings is wrong. I think they've been getting his price right on FanDuel. What is your kind of takes on Klay?
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I heard you say that in the Discord live yesterday. And his price is definitely incorrect on FanDuel. But the problem is he's been so scoring dependent. And he's always been scoring dependent. But it just, I don't know. He hasn't looked right. But I keep mentioning he started off bad last year, and he still led the league in 3-pointers made. It just, is his price going to be higher than 5,400 on FanDuel in a month? I'd be shocked if it wasn't. And so 26% ownership, it's a little bit tough. And I kind of, even at this low price, I kind of view him as more of a GPP play than a core play. But I'm still going to be getting to Klay a bunch. I mean,
it takes one slate for him to have a good night shooting, and then FanDuel's going to correct, right?
Yeah, and it's always going to come when he's chalk. So he's chalk tonight.
Yep. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on into the forwards here. Again, if you guys have any questions, make sure to get those in. Also, make sure to hit that like button. I want to see if we can get up to 50, and then the next goal is going to be 100. So let's try to get there. And then we do have a question. So why is Aaron Gordon a great DK value?
Just with Jamal Murray out, is Jamal Murray confirmed out, or are we just assuming he's not playing?
No, I thought he was confirmed out. Let me just refresh here on my end.
Okay. It just, Jokic is going to absorb a little bit more of the playmaking. I mean, he already has like the highest usage in the NBA, but Aaron Gordon, he takes on a larger role without Jamal Murray out. He should be the second best player. I know Michael Porter is usually my favorite GPP play to get to in these situations, but if Aaron Gordon just has the ball in his hands more, he's expected to be the second best player on this Denver team tonight. And especially at these ownerships, he's showing up at the top of value. I kind of love getting to Aaron Gordon tonight. He's been phenomenal the last few games, so I would be surprised if he came in as low as we're projecting, but he's not going to be as owned as he deserves, and his price should probably be $500 to $1,000 more to where we actually have to make a decision on him. But I think his price is really good on both sides.
Yeah, this is one of those strange ones where I don't really get where the industry isn't getting there. It doesn't make sense to me. 2%. And we've seen his minutes be there. Like he got 35 minutes the last two games. One of those was a blowout, and Denver typically will kind of run their players out, sometimes a little bit more in a blowout. Yeah, I'm going to be playing him. That's just too cheap. Even I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, Jamal Murray was confirmed out as well. You mentioned MPJ there. Are you getting to him tonight? Because I don't think we can really project him to get more minutes. Let's see here, 29. So that's about the same. Now he is one of the better values on the slate. Are you getting to him? He's 5 and 7%.
Yeah, the builder wasn't. Well, the thing is, his value. So he's second on FD value after Aaron Gordon, and then on DraftKings, he's third on forward value after Aaron Gordon and Jalen Johnson. So if everyone's going to Jalen Johnson, and I've talked about it, like Jalen Johnson was a surprise starter the other night. He ended up coming in at 3% ownership, and he actually was the best play on the slate, but I don't think he even ended up in the winner just because he was so low owned. No one had the right combo with him. But I mean, MPJ's ownership, I think it's just incorrect. His price is probably a little bit too low. It should be at least 7K, I think. So MPJ, a guy that I want to get to. Now, he's a much less safe than Aaron Gordon because if he's playing poorly, he will get benched, where Aaron Gordon, I don't think they can bench him under most circumstances tonight, but I'm going to be getting to both of them. I think they're both some of the best GPP plays, and especially looking at like Asar Thompson is coming in for much more ownership than them, and he seems like a great GPP play too. I think that his rebounding floor and his blocks and steals helps create a pretty safe play with the potential for the ceiling. I mean, I think he put up 50 DraftKings points yesterday or the day before. So, I'm going to be mixing in all these guys that we have at the top of DK value. And that might, going back to that Brandon Ingram question from earlier, I think that we can just save a little bit of money and go to these guys and pay up at point guard.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that too, where Aaron Gordon, MPJ, like the chances of them probably having about the same output as Ingram is pretty close, I would say, honestly, given the nature of the slate. And when you're looking at it, looking at the ownerships, to me, I kind of see it as I want to prioritize Aaron Gordon, then MPJ, then probably Thompson. I like him a little bit better. And then Jalen Johnson. Are you kind of looking at it that way as well, just because they're lower owned?
So when we're looking at the ownerships, I do think that we should probably have more Jalen Johnson than Michael Porter in our builds. He's also quite a bit cheaper on DraftKings, basically the same price on FanDuel. But, I mean, Lucas in the chat, are we back on Jalen Johnson? And so it's like I hate playing this guy when he's chalk. And 18% on DraftKings is not terrible, but his price is probably incorrect for his starting role. He should be over 6K. But I'm going to keep mentioning the same GPP play I've been mentioning every time. Jalen Johnson's a little chalkier, and I think DeAndre Hunter is a great pivot. I still have much more Jalen Johnson in my build, but I'm over the field on DeAndre Hunter still. And I do have a rule play max of one of these guys, which it might be a mistake, but I'm okay making it if it is.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. What's Hunter's ownership at? 8%? Yeah, I like that call. And he's still ranking out as a pretty good DK value there at 14.3 for the value rate. And yeah, I like that call because you look at his game log, he's had 3 stud performances over the past 5 games. So yeah, I don't mind that call at all.
And he got hurt the other day, which hurt his minutes. That was a game he did really poorly, DeAndre Hunter. He came out of the game for a bit. I think he hurt his finger, but he came back in. And if he's playing today, we assume that these guys are good to go. And looking at this, you actually just made me think of another injury spot. Porzingis has like a sty in his eye, and one of the beat reporters said it looked pretty bad at shoot around. And so I actually don't expect him to play. I haven't seen any other confirmation on it. But if Porzingis is out, Al Horford's already pulling insane ownership, and he does have a ceiling. It might be a little bit lower than we've historically seen just due to the other players on this Boston team. Mm-hmm. But Al Horford's going to be another spot, I think, especially on DraftKings with power forward eligibility. I mean, he's already projected for 27%. If we get confirmation that Porzingis is out, it's probably going to go up even more. But I think I'd rather just pay up to Jason Tatum in that case. I'm still going to be getting to a lot of Horford, but with Porzingis out, I mean, Jason Tatum, we've seen his ceiling kind of capped this season. He's been pretty consistently around 45, 50 fantasy points, but he hasn't really exploded yet. And if he's going to maintain that low ownership, then I really like Jason Tatum as a pay up today.
And we didn't get confirmation. Oh, we did. So, yeah, Derek White's out. And so, yeah, everyone's expecting Al Horford to kind of shift into the starting role as the power forward. I do have a question, though. So, if Porzingis were to be limited or out, do you think that would actually help or hurt Al Horford? Because obviously they're going against Minnesota. To me, I actually see that as a situation where it could hurt him more because a little bit more defensive attention. The two bigs are, easier to guard him than, and I don't know. I kind of see that as a situation where it could hurt him a little bit more, especially considering he'd probably become more chalk.
So he played 30 minutes against Brooklyn in the last game when he was filling in that starting lineup. And if he plays 30 minutes, he's got to be one of the best plays on the slate at these prices.
Yeah.
It might be a little scary to play Al Horford, especially you look at his previous game logs this season, but it's a completely different situation for him starting and with Porzingis out. So don't pay any attention to all these like low fantasy scores. He has the potential for higher usage. Maybe we get a double-double out of him. Yeah, but the higher ownership, it is unappealing. But let me see what I got Al Horford. So I'm actually a little bit below the field right now. I got 20% in my DraftKings run. But I'm playing him a bunch tonight. So.
All right, and then I do just want to get into kind of just some other general power forward plays that were kind of potentially standing out as good plays. Just kind of collect your thoughts on them. I'll kind of rapid fire. We'll just go quick. Chet Holmgren at 7.7 with SGA. Are you interested in or not?
Unfortunately, it's not that I'm uninterested in Chet Holmgren. I'm just more interested in other guys.
Yeah. Okay. John Collins was someone we were playing a bunch. Gets a better matchup tonight as opposed to the Minnesota matchup he had, but he finally saw a price increase. Where are you at with him?
I think he's a pretty safe play to get close to 30 fantasy points. If you play NBA cash still, then he's probably a really good play there. I do worry about his ceiling. I thought that maybe we could see a little bit more ceiling out of him, and maybe he's yet to show it. But I find myself on today's slate just actually paying a little bit more and getting to Lauri Markkanen with that 50-plus fantasy point potential and just higher usage.
Keegan Murray is someone that has been a headache to me. He has been shooting the basketball a decent amount, 12 shot attempts, 15 shot attempts, but he's been terrible. Will he bounce back? And can he be in the GPP winning lineup tonight at 6.5 if he does shoot the basketball better?
He definitely could, but this was a guy I thought I'd be getting to more with De'Aaron Fox out, but it hasn't really helped his usage at all. And it seems like another one of those situations where he might just be better with De'Aaron Fox on the court. And it's unfortunate. Yeah, it's unfortunate because I kind of like Keegan Murray, and the minutes floor is very good, but I'm just not getting there. I'd rather get to the Denver guys. I'd rather get to the Atlanta guys.
And then one other one that kind of really stood out to me at the start of the day, prior to all the news and whatnot, and one of the plays we haven't mentioned, Jabari Smith, he's been a little bit more consistent. We have seen the minutes be there, 30 straight minutes in 4 straight games, over 30 DraftKings points in 3 straight games. At 5.8, is he someone you're getting to?
Yeah, I was when you started that sentence, I was hoping that was the player that you were going to mention. I love Jabari Smith tonight. His ownership on DraftKings, it's getting up there at 19%, FanDuel 9%, but I think he's a great play on both sides. It's the exact same matchup we saw last game. So he did start out the game shooting pretty hot. I mean, 9 for 15. I don't know. I think he looks pretty good. But one thing, his prop line today was under 15.5 points, so that's a little concerning. But he can still get there with the peripheral stats. So I think that's a pretty solid play as well.
I noticed that too. Is like points, rebounds, and assist prop was extremely low as well. I was like, oh, that's not good because I had him in my opening DFS build. I'm like, that's not what you want to see. And then just two other players that I want to mention that are below 4K. Torrey Craig is pulling in 15% projected ownership, and we already kind of mentioned Joe Ingles, but where are we landing at on there? Because to me, I don't really see the need to go down that low on this slate because we have so many kind of mid-tier values. Is there any logical reason to get to those guys on the slate?
Torrey Craig. It's like he's had two decent games in a row, but 23 to 27 minutes. His price is really good on DraftKings. I think he's okay to get to a little bit, but he's not a core piece of value for today.
Like, it's tough for me to see him being in a GPP winning lineup, especially on this slate. And then Joe Ingles is someone to me, sure. Player pulled up. He's someone to me that sure he can get hot and really put up maybe 25 DraftKings points or, fantasy points, but I feel like that's the ceiling for him.
Yeah, I just it's tough because the thing is Joe Ingles, like if he puts, I hate talking about like, oh, if he puts up 20, he's fine. But the thing is, if he allows you to fit the guys that we want in our lineup, and he doesn't have to explode for us to win a GPP with a minute, and so he's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I gotcha. And then one player, and I just need to make sure he's active tonight because I don't want to sound stupid. Before we get into the next plays, just spelt it wrong again. Let me pull him up 1 second. It's Jaquez for Miami because I'm going to keep touting him casually touting him. Just keep telling people keep an eye on him until he gets more minutes. But he's 3.8. I'm a little bit sad about that, but played 22 minutes, 19 minutes, 23 minutes. His minutes are apparently being capped, which I hate. He did start one game, but he's put up 21, 13, and 20. And the reason I'm bringing him up is that a potential pivot from those guys, or is that just probably not?
I think it's probably a little bit too deep still until he has the potential to play up to 30 minutes. And the problem is when he's on the court with Tyler Herro, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, his usage is just so. I mean, Tyler Herro's usage has been insane this season. He's actually been one of the best players in the NBA. And so Tyler Herro's a GPP spot. I don't think we mentioned that. I don't mind getting to today. His price seems a little uncomfortable, but he's been smashing it a lot. And like I said, his usage is sky high. So I don't mind getting him, especially he's playing the Lakers. And it seems like a team that we want to target it against. So
yeah, no, I agree. I was just trying to find a pivot from the value there, and just it's weird that we don't have any sub 4K stud plays. I don't know, that's just strange. But we'll go ahead and move on into the center plays. You want to touch on some of the questions that we got coming in. It's thoughts on Jokic and Gordon together.
Yeah, what's up to Prince, one of our Discord regulars? I think it's fine. I'm not going to put a rule to not have them together. Just naturally in my lineups, I'm probably not going to get them that much in the same lineup. Let me see if I'm getting them together right now. Yeah, I only have them in a couple lineups out of my 150 set, so it's not something that I'm worried about. If you're hand building, I think it's fine.
Yeah, and then we got a question.
Ken, thoughts on these pivots, Anthony Black and Okongwu? I like Anthony Black. He's starting. He's not taking that many shots and playing next to Franz Wagner, who is just shooting the ball almost every time he touches it. And Paolo Banchero's been much better recently too. I don't know if he has that ceiling. He hasn't shown it to us yet, but he's a guy. I am getting to Anthony Black in my. I'm actually getting more of him than I'm getting of Cole Anthony. So the price is good on DraftKings at 4.3K. So I don't mind getting there at all.
And then, yeah, just Anyika as well there, guys. Like, I feel like he is a fine play just in general. You're getting $1,000 price discount.
There was another guard that we didn't mention. Fred VanVleet is a pretty big part of what I'm doing today. His price is incorrect on both sites. I think his ownership is probably going to come in a little bit higher than we expect, 22% and 11%. Maybe the 22% is correct, but 11% on FanDuel. I could see it being a little bit higher. Love getting to Fred VanVleet tonight. And Dylan Brooks, too. He's shooting out of his mind, but his price is probably still a little bit too low on DraftKings, and then FanDuel, he gets the extra point for steals, so it's probably fine too at the low ownership GPP play.
Hey, Chuck, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, were you?
Okay. No, that's fine. I was going to mention about Anyika Okongwu. I feel like he is a similar play to Clint Capella. Now at this point, like he's just been so consistent there, and it's $1,000 price discount. I'm fine getting there, but again, we do have a lot of good center plays. You got Goga right there.
Yeah, when Onyeka was chalk on those slates, I told people not to play him. He super went off when he was under 4K, but his price is just, it's a little bit too high now. 4,700 on DK. It's the same issues I had before. I don't think he has the potential to play 30 minutes due to Clint Capella being there. And like, is he a pivot to Goga? I just think we just play Goga.
Yeah, freaking Reed instead for Minnesota, I would say as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, and if Onyeka was projected for like 1% ownership, I'd say yeah, he's a pretty decent GPP pivot to Goga, but at 9%, it's too high.
So yeah, let's go ahead and touch on the center plays here, guys. So what I find interesting just in general is that we look at the OF index, Goga is not popping up as like one of the stud plays, but we look at DK value is he is one of the stud plays. I don't know. Typically, we don't see that big of a difference, I would say. I guess we're just getting to Goga, right? Against Dallas as well. It's a good matchup. He had the minutes. He's projected to get the minutes again. He's chalk. Probably should just eat that chalk.
Yeah, he's my highest owned player on DraftKings right now, and he's among my highest owned players on FanDuel. I just there's certain times you guys know that I really like getting away from chalk, but I think he just it's too good of a spot tonight.
And we did mention like Mo Wagner, and I am going to enter 3 lineups, and I'm going to have Mo Wagner in one of them instead of Goga.
Yeah, it's not a bad pivot at all.
Another center that I think is in a good spot is Brook Lopez, and he is pulling in as a pretty good center play value-wise, only pulling in 2% ownership. And I say that because he's going against Brooklyn. Brooklyn is still without Nick Claxton. I saw that Ben Simmons was projected to start as the point guard tonight. I don't know how accurate that is, but what are your kind of thoughts on Lopez tonight?
So there's certain guys when they're at certain prices and ownerships that I don't care about the matchup. I'm going to be over the field on them regardless. And Brook Lopez is definitely one of those guys when he's 5,500 on DraftKings at this 2% ownership. His minutes vary so much. I mean, we haven't projected for 29. He could be less. He could be a couple more, but yeah, great GPP play. And his ownership is suppressed because so much of it's going to Goga and probably Al Horford. But Brook Lopez, always going to be a good GPP play to me when he's at this price and ownership.
And then I'm looking at Miles Turner a little bit in this matchup, and I'm like, all right, well, you can definitely play Miles Turner in that matchup. But then again, we do have like Webby there, but also like Zach Collins in that exact same game. That is going to be a pretty high scoring game. And to me, I'm like, I would almost rather just go with a slightly cheaper Zach Collins or a slightly more expensive player with Webby there. Are you able to get to Miles Turner tonight, because he is pulling in a lot of ownership, and I would almost say a cheaper Zach Collins to me in terms of ownership and price is a little bit more appealing? Or is that just, we can be even way in the field with those two?
So Miles Turner's price on DraftKings is probably slightly too low. He does have a ceiling, and he got into foul trouble I think last game, and he played terrible, regardless of that. But I'm a little bit under the field on him on DraftKings, and then FanDuel, he gets the extra point for blocks. He has a huge block ceiling. And so he's a guy I'm getting to a bit, but not someone that I'm prioritizing.
Yeah, and then the reason I bring up Zach Collins is because the last 3 games he's been pretty consistent. And against Toronto, 38 minutes and 35 minutes against Phoenix. So he's had 45 and 35. It does seem like Indy's going to be a team that we are targeting. And maybe that's a situation in which we're probably not going to get too much secondary centers in our build. We might. But I don't mind both of those two. It might be slightly if I was going to max center, which I'm not, but I would be over the weight on the field on those two by a little bit, probably 20% Turner, and then probably, I don't know, 15% Zach Collins, just because I think their likelihood to put up 6x, 7x is greater tonight than it typically would be.
No, that's a great call on Zach Collins. I'm double the field on him on DraftKings right now. The main thing is, so we haven't projected for 30 minutes, but he has played, even without the overtime, he's played a couple minutes more than that. And that was the issue with him last year, was that we couldn't really project him for more than 30 minutes. But the whole Spurs team, it's like, I don't know if it was because they wanted to tank for Wemby last year or what, but they're all playing more minutes than I expected going into the season. And Zach Collins, I mean, I was actually kind of surprised that he was pulling this much ownership, but he looks great in the model. I mean, 9% 16 is not like huge ownership, but especially on FanDuel power forward eligibility, love getting to Zach Collins and GPPs tonight.
Then we didn't really mention him. Keldon Johnson, he's a little bit too high priced right tonight at 7.3, just forward wise.
I think the price is probably appropriate for him, but the kind of the same thing. There's other plays I'd rather get to than Keldon Johnson, but I still think he's fine if you're mixing him into your set a little bit. I have 0 in my 150 right now. Maybe I force in a couple percent, but not someone who I'm prioritizing tonight.
Yeah.
And I guess we did get news. Kristaps is in, so these beat reporters I hate him. But Al Horford, he's still going to be fine because he's starting, but his ownership is a little bit higher than I'd like to get to there. So I'm probably going to try to avoid him if I can. He's still going to show up for me in my lineups, but not one of my favorite plays. I'd rather just take the value at another position and get to these Denver guys. And Ken asked, would we play MPJ and Gordon in the same lineup? And so if you're hand building, I know it's a little bit uncomfortable to do something like that, but their prices are both very good on both sites. And so I'm not setting a rule against it. I'm going to have them both in the same lineup together a bit. And we did see them both hit that ceiling score a couple games ago. So I'm perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, and I would agree as well. Like MPJ, although he hasn't been playing like too many minutes thus far this season, he has been productive on a points per minute basis. And then maybe in this game, he gets a few more shot attempts up in the game. Like, yeah, those two could easily pair up and get 40 fantasy points for you. And so it's very logical, I would say. Just looking at the top center plays on the slate, I know we got probably hurry up here. Vucevic, Embiid, Anthony Davis. To me, I'm still shocked at the price tag that we are getting on Anthony Davis. I know it's a matchup with Miami, but he's only 3% owned. I feel like that's a huge leverage spot, but also it is Miami. We could be a little bit worried about that.
I'm playing an uncomfortable amount of Anthony Davis tonight, and it's just due to I think his price is too low, and for that low price, his ownership seems incorrect. So I'm well over the field on Anthony Davis.
And I just don't get it. Like, he's been super consistent, and they're not moving him up. And is there any logical reason as to why that is? Because I just don't get it. I don't get where the data hasn't caught up. Is it just because he hasn't been super high owned? So like their algorithm isn't shifting the pricing up, whereas FanDuel maybe has been higher owned because he has the power forward eligibility?
I don't know. FanDuel's been a lot quicker to adjust pricing this year, but even just looking at the price discrepancy, he's 11.6 on FanDuel, 9.9 on DK, and that alone, that's a huge price discrepancy. And so It's kind of like I don't know if you guys have looked into the EV betting style. It's like, well, he's this price on FanDuel, but he's this price on DraftKings. Let's jam him on DraftKings. Like, is he going to be a higher price in a month? I thought he'd be a higher price by now, but at this ownership, it's just insane.
And it's like, you mentioned that, like the pricing discrepancies, like typically speaking, I feel like whenever we see a massive one like that, that player where he's significantly cheaper is chalk. So very interesting. We did get some news, and we'll get into the Jalen Suggs question in a second. Jalen Duren is now questionable, and this is something that I kind of was expecting. Maybe like one of the Detroit bigs to sit, and probably Duren because he had been someone that, kind of was a random scratch in a couple of games. I don't really know if that shifts the slate too much just yet, but obviously Bagley would be someone we'd be looking at, and probably Thompson would just be a much better play at his price tag.
Yeah, I'm gonna like the reason we like Asar. I think he has a really safe floor on the peripheral stats. The scoring is getting there a little bit more. He has a willingness to shoot, even if he's missing, which we love to see for fantasy. If Jalen Duren's out, I actually think this is a pretty significant change on the slate. That game starts in 30 minutes from now, and Marvin Bagley's sitting there 4,500 on DraftKings with power forward eligibility, 5K on FanDuel, only center. So it's going to be a little tougher to get to him on FanDuel regardless. Just Goga looks
flipped,
good too.
I think it's flipped there. So he's center on DraftKings, and then I think power forward center on FanDuel.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so center on DraftKings, that's okay, so FanDuel, yeah, if we can play him at power forward on FanDuel at 5K, that's great. Center eligibility on DraftKings, we're going to be playing a lot of Goga, but we can play two centers on DraftKings, so it's not a problem to get there. If we get that news, like this Jalen Duren news came out kind of late. If we get that Marvin Bagley news like 10 minutes before lock, he's probably going to be way underowned. Mm-hmm. And on the last Marvin Bagley slate, I played 100%. I didn't think twice about it. Okay, so I just got news. Marvin Bagley expected to start at center, so it's a little bit earlier. I wish that came out in about 20 minutes, but unfortunately, I'm going to be playing an uncomfortable amount of Marvin Bagley again. And what are we doing with Marvin Bagley versus Goga? I think they're both great plays. I think there's going to be a lot of lineups that have both of them in it, which is going to push down the ownership of the other centers even more. And so we talked about Brook Lopez, great GPP play. He's still a fine GPP play. I don't know if I'm going to get there as much, but I am going to get to some pay-ups like Embiid and Anthony Davis and Jokic still.
Yeah, so this is a conundrum for me. Just I wanted to get to AD, and now I'm probably going Goga and Bagley, and I hate it. because I want to take advantage of that price discount.
And I said, like, we're still playing AD, but the problem is we have two, like, to me, these are two incredible value plays at center.
Yeah.
And I think I actually slightly prefer Marvin Bagley over Goga. Just his ownership's not going to get there. It's still going to come up, but it's not going to get to where Goga's was because we've known about Goga all day. But I think they're both phenomenal plays. And now we can, like I mentioned, paying up at point guard. We can pay up at point guard. We have Tyrese, DeJounte, both Tyrese's, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander at no ownership. So I think the play is to at least pay down at center on one spot on DraftKings, if not center and utility. But I mentioned this on the other slate too, where the utility spot was just hammered with centers from the top players. And so I think that's the move today. Just play two centers on DraftKings in almost every lineup.
And just for what it's worth, guys, like I kind of mentioned a couple of times now where I probably will be playing Mo Wagner as a pivot to Goga in at least one build. And I think that sets up perfectly because you can play him at the power forward spot and then get to AD or whichever other center you'd want to be on. So that's probably something I'm going to do there. But yeah, I do think we want to be prioritizing, as always, either a point guard or center. But typically speaking, center value has been a little bit easier. So I think we're fine with that. We got a question about Jalen Suggs. Yeah, I think he's a fine play. He's ranking out a little bit better than Cole Anthony. Where do you want to close out this live stream? Because we're kind of going a little bit past the Discord chat time. And so kind of where do you want to go? How do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just play two centers, like I said, and pay up at the other positions. I think the two Denver forwards are in really good spots. The Pelicans have Dyson Daniels. Brandon Ingram's still going to be in a good spot. Houston has a few good spots. Atlanta has a couple guys we're interested, Jalen Johnson and DeAndre Hunter as the pivot.
I'll list off my top 4 plays on the slate, and then, or if you want to go first, that's fine. I think mine will be a little bit different than yours. And then we'll just kind of wrap it up. I think, we're kind of just running short on time.
My top plays on DraftKings. I'm still going to be getting to Fred VanVleet. We have no problem getting to his price now. Goga Bitadze. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Marvin Bagley. I want to see the model update in a minute. Anthony Davis is my favorite true pay up. And I think Tyrese Halliburton's in a really good spot still, and his price seems uncomfortable because it's higher than we're used to, but I still like him. And then one of the Magic guards, Black, Anthony, or Suggs, all look good.
Okay. Yeah, and then to me, kind of my favorite play right now is still Sasser. He's still pulling in as like one of the best plays. I know he might be a little bit hard to get to now because we have that other value that just opened up, but I do still think he's going to play. And then I do like the Denver bigs. I think Aaron Gordon's very safe. I think MPJ is going to be a good GPP play, but the one play I want to get to more, and I don't know if I'll be able to, but is Wagner for Orlando, the Franz Wagner. I just like the price tag. I like the upside. I think you can go for 50 on this slate.
It's not a bad call. Yeah, I like it.
All right, I'm going to do the Discord plug, and then we're just going to get straight into the end screens. So thank you guys for watching. Chuck, any last second thoughts?
Well, Jalen Duren was confirmed out, so I think we just play a bunch of Marvin Bagley. I think he's going to be a spot. His ownership probably will be up there, but it's not what it should be if we knew all day.
Okay, thanks, guys. And so here is going to be the Discord chat. We are switching over there right now. So it's probably going to go live in about 2 minutes. Get your questions asked in there, and we're going to get some closing thoughts on the slate. If any more news comes in, that's where we'll be breaking it down. Thank you guys for being here. Let's have a good slate, and good luck.
Thanks, guys.